You're listening to Pathways and Means, a podcast that inspires and shows people how to tap into their creative spirit. We sit down with leaders and makers in every industry to talk about their process, what inspires them, and about how to build incredible things with the power of creativity. The future belongs to the creators, so come join us. This is Pathways and Means.
Yo, I'm back in the building, baby. It's been a minute since y'all seen your boy, SJ, Pathways and Means. We got a special treat for y'all today. And I'm telling you, it's like a lot of times, some people are just playing above the rim. And we have one of those people here today, a fellow Kansan, beautiful, talented, innovative, creative, extraordinary. So without further ado, I want you guys to meet Miss Kansas. This is about to run for Miss International, Kayla Schadegg.
Hi guys.
I know. Did I say the last name?
You were really close. Schadegg.
Schadegg. So, how are you doing today?
I am good. I'm a little sweaty. This extreme temperature switch to suddenly we're in the almost 100 degrees has hit me a little hard, but I'm hanging in there.
It is a heat wave.
It is, and it hit like a ton of bricks.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you. Yeah, we're trying to stay cool. We normally do Capitol Walk sometimes, and we've been kind of putting those off because
we'll do that a little later.
We'll do that a little later. So, tell me, what did the journey look like to become Miss Kansas? And and how much more difficult is it going to be to become Miss International?
Yeah, so becoming Mrs. Kansas has really been, I'm going to say, a 6-year journey. I started out kind of looking into pageantry when I was already a full-grown woman. I was 26 years old. I had already been married. I already had a child, and I had never even seen a pageant in person before. But my daughter was diagnosed with Down syndrome at birth, and I had a really poor diagnosis experience. Her doctor was really not up to date on best practices for how to deliver a diagnosis. And I wanted to do something to change that. I wanted to make some kind of impact, but I didn't feel ready to dive into the legislative world and trying to get laws passed and dealing with representatives and senators yet. I just wasn't there, and saw a sponsored ad on social media for a married women's pageant and said, I'm gonna do that, and dove in head first. Literally had no training, no prep. I learned everything on YouTube and Google and just kind of self-taught. And all of that has built up to me representing this amazing state of Kansas on the Mrs. International stage next month. I've got a crazy couple of weeks leading up to me heading out that direction, but I am really excited to get to Tennessee and to show everybody at Mrs. International what Kansas can bring to the stage.
No, that sounds amazing. And even you normally hear about people getting involved in pageantry early on. I mean, 3 years old, things like that. So that's I think that's going to be real encouraging for people who may have never been involved in a pageant before.
Yeah, I hope so. And the other thing is that people, when they hear that I do pageants, they always get the image of Miss Congeniality, the movie, and the stereotypes of catty pageant women. And there's always going to be somebody like that in every crowd, but what I have learned through the last 6 years of kind of progressing to this point is that most of the women, I would say 99% of the women who are investing their time, it takes so much time to prepare for an event like this. They're investing their money, they're going out and fundraising, they're really truly serving their communities. Those women are there to make the world a better place. They're not the kind of it's not the caricature of pageant women that you see, or the toddlers and tiaras kinds of things. It really is women who are out there to make their communities, to make their state, to make the world a better place. And so getting to be part of that and to kind of rub elbows with those people has been really, really empowering for me too.
No, that sounds, very encouraging. Now, there were some things that you said that I want to revisit real quick. How was the news delivered to you about your daughter?
Yeah, so my daughter was born in Maryland. We weren't living in Kansas at the time. My husband is in the military, so we were living kind of right outside of Baltimore. We gave birth at a really affluent, really well-connected hospital that should have had all of the right things going for them when it came to delivering a diagnosis like that. But they came into my maternal recovery room kind of a couple hours after I had given birth, told me that the doctor wanted to look over my daughter, Kerrigan, again, just to kind of check her over now that she was a few hours old. And I was a first-time mom. I was pretty young. I was only 23. And I was like, okay, cool, great, thank you. So they took her. And when they came back, it wasn't a nurse with her. It was the pediatrician that worked for the hospital. And I gave birth at a hospital that was a learning hospital. So there was a medical resident, a student with him. And he walked in and he had barely gotten her bassinet through the door before he locked eyes with me and he told me, we have reason to believe that your daughter has Down syndrome. We've taken a blood sample and we've sent it off to a testing facility and they'll be able to get back to you and let you know whether she actually has Down syndrome or not. Do you have any questions? And he was still just lurking in the doorway and he hadn't even stepped foot into the room yet and all of that had tumbled out of his mouth. And keep in mind, I've just been in labor for, 24, 30 hours. I've just birthed a whole human being. I've barely eaten breakfast. I've not had any sleep in 2 days. And all of that is just pouring out at you. And there was no congratulations. There was no, your baby is healthy, which she was. Right. It was just bad news from the get-go, and you could see it in his face. And so we asked him a couple of questions, none of which he really answered all that clearly. And we kind of decided we were done, and so we said thank you, and I guess we'll see what the test says. And before he left the room, he said, well, part of our hospital policy will connect you with our hospital social worker, and she'll help make you local connections so that your quality of life suffers as little as possible. And that was the last thing he said before he walked out of the room.
Wow.
So I've just become a mom for the very first time. My husband has just become a father for the first time. And within 4 hours of our daughter's birth, we've been told by someone who should be helping support us during this massive transition of we have a baby to we have a baby with potentially a lifelong chromosomal condition and developmental disability. And instead of that, we got told your quality of life is going to suffer. And beyond that, they didn't connect us with the social worker. They didn't give us any local resources or connections. So despite the fact that our local Down syndrome organization actively had a relationship with them, they had their materials, they had their contact information, we got nothing. We walked out of the hospital completely empty-handed. And the only reason that I even found our local organization there is because I had existing relationships with an organization here, 1,200 miles away in Kansas, that helped guide me through the process.
Okay, so that's hence why you're back here in Kansas.
Partially. So our whole families are here in Kansas. My husband and I grew up here. We absolutely loved growing up in the Midwest. Kansas has always been home for us. We loved living in Maryland. There's lots of exciting things to do there, but I would be lying if I said that our hearts were just not in staying there long term. And during the pandemic, my husband got kind of a whirlwind, really unexpected job offer here that he applied for just kind of as a joke and was like, I'm way underqualified. There's no way in the world they're going to take me. And they took him and they wanted him to get there fast. And so it just kind of the stars all aligned and we were able to come back home. So we spent 7 years on the East Coast and we've been back here since December of 2020.
Wow. Well, all that was a lot. I mean, definitely for a first-time parent to get news like that delivered in such of a way to where, I mean, there was no congratulations.
No.
There was no, you have a healthy child. It was, we're going to try to help your life not suffer or not suck.
Yep.
Or this.
Literally like, here's your brand new baby. Hopefully your life doesn't suck as much as it might.
Yeah. So what does the conversation in 2022 look like around Down syndrome?
Yeah. So I think that a lot of people don't have a lot of exposure to Down syndrome, and what exposure they do have is pretty outdated because it's usually like a TV show clip, or it's, they have read something in a science textbook. And a lot of that info is really outdated. People in 2022 that have a Down syndrome diagnosis are thriving. So my daughter Kerrigan is 6. She is attending our neighborhood school. She's included in her general education classroom. She does get pulled out for some specialized services that she needs to help kind of get her up to speed on things or to work on her speech delay and stuff like that. But she goes goes to gym class. She goes to dance class. She plays with her little brother. People with Down syndrome are really so much more like everyone else than people really realize. And so that's been a huge part of my mission, is getting to share that and showing people that yes, there's differences, but we all have differences. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. And if we choose to only focus on those weaknesses, that's how we kind of get ourselves into the little tangle that we're in at this point, where when you do have a child that's diagnosed with a disability, whether it's something like Down syndrome that gets diagnosed prenatally or usually right at birth, or it's something that gets diagnosed later on, autism, ADHD, things like that, those things aren't celebrated, and they're seen as a hardship, and they're seen as such a negative draw to a family, when really we all have things that crop up through our lives that we have to deal with. So it's just kind of another thing to add to that list.
Yeah, no, that's that's very interesting, because a lot of times, so I have some family members who have Down syndrome, a cousin, and I guess they're both cousins. One's just older than the other one, but I've seen Grace just strive. That's my younger cousin. She just turned 18, but I mean, she would be a part of the TARC as far as the thing that happens at the Lake Winter Wonderland and stuff like that. So sometimes for those commercials, she was on those commercials when I did things for the Boys and Girls Club. She would attend there as well, and they'd have her, and sometimes she'd be in her own room or with some other children, but she got along with everybody. I mean, and it wasn't like it was a whole lot of separation from things, and just at her growth, but she's surrounded by so much love and everything like that. But I think a lot of times people just don't have an understanding of what it looks like or anything like that. So let me ask you, a regular day in the life of Kayla, what does that look like? And, and how creative do you have to be?
Creativity is pivotal to my day. So I run a children's fitness center for a living. I run the My Gym Children's Fitness Center here in Topeka. So I get up, I am in the gym every morning. So I drive into work. I do a little bit of prep work with whoever is on staff that day. And then I'm running fitness classes for kiddos. When you're working with kids that are, especially that toddler age group, you have to be wild and goofy and crazy to keep their attention. So I am pretty much a nonstop imagination machine from about 8 a.m. until usually like 2 in the afternoon. And at that point, I get to shut my brain off for a little bit. I love working out. So usually a workout is somewhere in the day. I like to go right after work, because it's in between the time that I am working with other people's kids and then go home and have to wrangle my own children.
Right.
So I give myself a little brain break in the afternoon. And then evenings are all about family time. So I go home, get to spend the night with my awesome husband and our 2 kiddos. We have Kerrigan, who, like I said, is 6. And then we have a little boy, Knox, who's getting ready to turn 1 in like a week and a half.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know how to process that. But so family time, we have dinner together. We play in our backyard. We have a huge swing set that my husband built last summer, and that's been a big hit this year with both kiddos. So lots of family time, or we'll go out, and my brother-in-law lives with us, so we go out with him sometimes, but just all about that family unit time. And then usually by the time the kids are in bed, it's back to work, whether that's handling Mrs. Kansas responsibilities, doing meetings, handling stuff for the gym that I do from home, some of our social media work and things like that. So it's basically a nonstop whirlwind, no matter what day of the week it is.
It sounds like it. So, couple questions on that. You talked about My Gym.
Yep.
Let's talk about that a little bit more. So, who do you serve for that? What are the age groups for something like that? I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, so we start really young. We can start as young as 4 weeks. Right now, most of our classes are starting around 6 months. We have the capacity to go younger, but I think especially with us kind of still being on the tail end of the pandemic, a lot of people are hesitant, which I totally understand. So we serve, I'll say 4 months, because that's where most of our kiddos start, up to about 10. And we have classes that are broken down into really cool little individual age brackets.
Okay.
So the programming that your kid is getting is all individualized to specifically where they're at developmentally. So that youngest age group is going to go from 4 months up to 18 months, and everything is targeted specifically at where they're at developmentally. And then it just goes up from there. And it's all specified. It's all unique. It changes every week. So when they come in week to week, they're getting new, exciting programming. They're not seeing the same thing every single time they come in. The gym setup changes every week. We move all of our equipment around every single week. So when they come in, it's something new, it's something fresh. There's new ways for them to explore physically. And it's amazing. I fell into doing my gym accidentally. I have a teaching license and a teaching degree. I actually was at Emporia State to do secondary education. So I taught high school English before I did this, and moved to Maryland in 2014, right after I graduated college. Needed something to do while my teaching licensure transferred over, and found my gym. And I was like, oh, I can teach gymnastics to babies. And that was 8.5 years ago. And I literally never even filed the paperwork to transfer my teaching license, because I just fell in love with how inclusive and understanding and how energetic the vibe is at my gym. And it sucked me in, and I've never wanted to let go.
I mean, it sounds amazing. I've never heard of anything like that. So you came in contact with that while you were in Maryland.
Yep.
Is this something that is it franchised? Is it like a lot of places?
It is franchised, and we're global. So we have 700 plus locations around the world.
Wow.
Here in the US, it is really big coastally. So East Coast and West Coast have a lot of my gyms. We started out in California and then have expanded a bunch on the coast. And then we're kind of trickling outward. So we're the third location here in Kansas. Okay. There's one in Overland Park, there's one in Wichita, and then our location here in Topeka just opened in November of 2021.
Well, that's amazing. What has been the biggest challenge with my gym? I mean, as far as like working with a 4-week-old, I mean, how?
Yeah. So I've worked for my gym for, like I said, for 8.5 years. And up until moving back to Kansas and helping our two owners here get the franchise open from the ground up, I really felt like I had kind of done it all. And opening a business is no joke. It honestly, I have done everything you could possibly do, even teaching a 4-week-old and teaching their parent how to maneuver their body and get them to do different developmental things that are appropriate for them. That has nothing on navigating the world of opening a new business and growing that business, and then being able to help. Like you said, people don't know what my gym is. And so you tell them, oh, I run a children's fitness center, and they look at you like you're a little bit crazy, because they're like, a fitness, like a gym for, are you using tiny dumbbells? And you're like, no. And so getting people to understand what we do and how critical it is and how much kids get out of it before they could really see it was so hard. But actually inside the gym, the hardest thing that we do, we teach a ninja training class, and that's our older kids. So that's our 6 to 10-year-old group. And it is physically exhausting, even as someone who is really in shape. I go to the gym 5 days a week. That class, by the end of it, I am always exhausted. So having to push myself physically while also getting those older kids to follow the directions and keeping their attention is, by the end of that class, I am always ready to lay down on the floor and pass out.
I can see that looks like your whole life is purpose driven. So
very much so.
With that, I'm seeing your dedication to the youth, even your own situation as far as family and how news was delivered to you. What would you say that your mission is, and why is it so important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So in pageantry, we have something called a platform or a service platform, and it's usually whatever you kind of structure most of your community service around. And so my platform is called Strong Over Wrong, and it's based out of a quote that I heard from a seminar once that said, we need to be looking for what's strong and not just at what's wrong.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Thank you. I loved it too, and I honed in on it, and I wrote it down, and it's written in every binder that I own. It's in my phone. It's everywhere. And what I wanted to zone in on with that is that diagnosis experience. And I thought to myself, how many friends do I have who had an experience similar? And how can I change that being just one person? And so what I started doing is finding every opportunity that I could to do medical advocacy presentations and showing doctors, whether they're already working in the field, maybe they're a medical student, maybe they're a resident, any chance I can get to get in front of a healthcare professional, a medical professional, someone who's maybe going to be an OT or a PT, anybody that's going to work with a child that has a disability. And how can I show them that, yes, families need to hear those clinical things. They need to know what the delays might be, what kind of medical risks are present. They need that stuff. That's important for them. But they also need to hear congratulations.
They do.
They need to have community and network and support and resources. They need a compassionate diagnosis, because that little flashbulb moment is going to set the stage for the rest of that child's life. And I'm really lucky that I have the support network that I have, and I have the background that I have, and I was able to overcome that really negative diagnosis. But it wasn't without a lot of hard work, and it wasn't without a lot of mental health care and a lot of people lifting me up and supporting me along the way. So I want to make it so that families don't have to do that work on their own. So that when they're getting that diagnosis, they're walking in and they're walking out of that room feeling, okay, I have information. This might have been hard to hear, but I know who I can talk to. I know places I can get more information. I know that I've been given information that's balanced so that I'm not feeling like I'm biased one way or the other. And they're feeling empowered instead of dragged down by it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, it's a great mission that you're on. I mean, it's selfless. I mean, I've seen you out here in community. Even your volunteer work. I mean, you're everywhere. I mean,
I try to be. It is. It's definitely tricky when you're competing as a married woman, and especially a married woman with kids. You know, not everybody who competes in a Mrs. Pageant has children. We all have husbands, obviously. It's a Mrs. Pageant, but we don't all have children. Not everybody works full time, and I work 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. I have 2 very young kids, and so scheduling community service around that can get kind of tricky, but I do the absolute best that I can to be out there doing something for the community anytime that I possibly have the time in my schedule. I figured that if I have that time in my schedule, I'm either going to spend it scrolling Instagram on my phone, or I can spend it out there doing some good and putting that energy back into my community in ways that are going to multiply tenfold.
No, that's excellent, which is going to lead into my next question. What do you do to unwind and relax? I mean, because it sounds like, I'm already knowing how much is on your plate. I'm knowing that, and when you do some of these volunteer opportunities, I mean, sometimes you're these opportunities to where you're not just doing something small, you're judging things. You're having to do a lot of mental work. You've got to do,
For sure.
So so how do you unwind and relax?
Oh, yeah. So my husband and I, while we were still living in Maryland during the pandemic, bought kayaks. They were a very impulse buy.
So you exercise.
I do. Kayaking is kind of lazy people exercise. I love it because of that. Because you can if you want to work out, you can paddle really hard. If you want to just kick your feet up and lay back and float, you can also do that. So it's kind of a combination. So we love to take our kayaks out. We live right off of Sherwood Lake, so we get literally right there. And we are also big foodies. We love to try out new local restaurants.
Eating. I love eating.
Yes. Anywhere that we can get locally owned, stuff that's not franchised. I want really awesome, unique food.
Yeah.
And so we have a blast coming down here to Northern Topeka, all the different, there's so many different taste styles and different environments that you can pick. So we try to pick something once a week or once every other week and come try a new place out. And we've been doing this for a year and a half, and we still haven't run out of places yet, which is incredible. So
yeah, that's awesome. And it doesn't strike me as strange that you relax kayaking or doing something physical, with your husband being military.
Yep.
And another thing, I have to point this out. You have a son that's under 1 year old right now.
Yes.
And you're running for Miss International within that 1 year. So
I signed up to compete. He was, he would have been maybe 3 weeks old the day that I signed my contract. And I just decided, I said, you know what better way to make sure that I am not getting lost in that newborn stage? What better way to make sure that I am being a good mom by also filling my cup and having self-care and having some focus and some time to myself than by paying a whole lot of money to go compete in a pageant. And so it's been really nice. It's been nice to have that driving force of having something to combat the mom guilt with. If I'm I really need to go to the gym today, but man, I really should be home with the kids. And then in the back of my head, I'm no, take that time to yourself, invest that time in yourself, because it is an investment. It's not only an investment in your health, but in your financial and in your future and in your community service to be able to go take that time. So it's been challenging for sure, especially from November to March. My husband got sent to Texas for military training. So I had a 4-month-old. I had a business that had opened 1 week before he left. And I had a 5-year-old with a disability. And it was just a nonstop juggling game of which ball is in the air and how am I going to catch it before it falls. But we made it work. And it was really nice to, again, have that in the back of my head of like, why am I pushing through this? Why am I fighting through this like tough time? And it was like, okay, when I get to the other side of this, then I get to go have this amazing experience for myself. I get to go make new friends. I get to see all the ways these other women are serving their communities too. And so it was a bold move to sign up when he was 3 weeks old, but I'm very glad that I did it.
It's really amazing because I mean, part of all these pageants, there's physical things that are involved.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's some people who, never lose the baby weight. Or things like that.
Yep.
You know, I know a lot of women feel different ways about that. But as far as you competing for Miss International within a year of giving birth, it's hand claps for you.
So after Kerrigan was born, you know, especially with that diagnosis and dealing with kind of adjusting from, you expect when you decide to start a family, you have a vision of what that's going to look like, and dealing with the transition of that from what we thought parenthood was going to look like to being not just parents, but disability parents, and dealing with that terrible diagnosis and some other, you know, rough medical experiences. There's an element of almost like PTSD to it. And you definitely lose yourself a little bit. And in that first year of Kerrigan's life, I definitely lost myself. By the end of that first year, I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, who am I? Right? Like I don't feel like myself. I don't look like myself. And so I was very determined that with Knox, I was like, regardless of the outcome of his birth, regardless of if he were to have Down syndrome, because once you have one child with Down syndrome, your risk factor, for lack of a better term, does escalate. Whether he has any other kind of medical complications, which luckily for us, he didn't. He was, you know, completely healthy and has so far been typically developing. But regardless of any of that, I said, I am going to make sure somehow that like, I don't lose myself like that again. And so, like I said, this pageant fell at exactly the right time to really give me that push for not only my physical health, but my mental health, to make sure that I was taking time for me outside of all of the 10,000 other things that I had going on in life at the time.
No, that's amazing. So in the spirit of wrapping up, I'm going to ask you this last question.
Okay.
If there's one takeaway that you want the viewers to know, or one thing that you feel can help them, something that has helped you in the past, what would that be?
I would say never count yourself out. I feel like people, whether it's, you know, a woman looking at a pageant and being like, oh, well, that sounds really cool and it sounds like something I would be great at, but I don't know if I could do it. I am 5'2". I am not a size 00. I am by no means the stereotype of what you would look at and be like, oh, she does beauty pageants. But I am good at it because I serve my community. I'm good at it because I love talking to people and I love helping build brands and businesses. So whatever it is that in the back of your head, you're thinking to yourself, I'd really like to do that, but I don't know if I can cut the mustard. You can cut it. Just take the leap, give it a try, and it might take you a couple shots. You may not make it on the first try, but just give yourself that vote of confidence that you can do it and that you're capable.
Kayla, I lied. One more question. For anybody who might be raising a child with Down syndrome, what advice would you give for them, or any new parent who might be running into that or dealing with that? What would you say?
My favorite thing to tell people when they are getting a diagnosis, or when I get in touch with them for the first time as I'm kind of mentoring a new parent, is to tell them that whatever you're feeling, it's valid. There are so many people who you go through this whole range of emotions. You go through shock and grief and kind of feeling betrayed and being scared and being excited, and it's like a wave and it just comes and goes. And so many people will tell me like, oh, I'm so embarrassed by how I felt during the diagnosis experience. And my question is always, why are you embarrassed? You should never feel embarrassed for how you're feeling, because you have to process that somehow. You have to, anytime you get big life-changing news, you have to process it. So whatever you're feeling, whether it's excitement, whether it's confusion, whether it's grief, it's valid. Work your way through it, and it's gonna come and go for the rest of forever. Kerrigan is 6, and I still have moments of grief, and that's okay, because there are still things that are hard. Knox is only 1, and he's totally typically developing, and I have moments of grief dealing with him as a parent. It's totally typical to a parenting experience to have a wide range of emotions, so just let yourself feel them, healthily process through them, and then move on to the next thing.
That was, I'm so glad that I didn't end it with that other question. I'll tell you what, Kayla, it has been a pleasure having you on the Pathway Means podcast. Good luck to you and everything that you have going. I'm going to join my gym because I have toddler muscles.
Yep.
So I figure
we'll get you in shape. We'll get you.
So once again, your boy was back in the building. It's been a minute since y'all seen me, but thank you for tuning in to Pathways Means. Kayla, let me know, how can the people get in touch with you?
Absolutely.
If they want to, get involved with my gym, or if they want to get some advice from you, or anything, or support what you have going.
So for my gym, they can go to our Facebook page, which is My Gym Topeka, our Instagram, which is at My Gym Topeka, or they can give us a call at 785-260-0280. I will caveat, there are two Kaylas that work there. One of us is the owner, and that's my boss, Kayla, with a C, and then I'm the director, Kayla, with a K. But if you ask for one of us, you'll get somebody who knows what she's talking about. And then if anybody wants any information about pageantry, or if they have a Down syndrome diagnosis, or really any kind of disability-related questions at all, I'm happy to help out. I am on Facebook, Mrs. Kansas International 2022, or on Instagram at Strong Over Wrong.
Outstanding. So it's SJ and Kayla, and we're signing off on Pathways and Means. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found today's episode informative and inspiring. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, visit pathwaysmeans.com to check out a ton of additional content from the CPM team. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, where we post daily content and engage with creators like you. Signing off for Pathways and Means, we'll see you next time.